What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our SEC football channel. And up next, it's the Kentucky Wildcats, a team that had a very successful season last year. Surprised a lot of people, including myself. They got 10 wins. They finished 9-3 in the regular season, but with that big bowl win over Penn State, finished with 10 wins. It was a great season. Problem for Kentucky is the fact that they lose a ton of guys on defense. A lot of really good football players on that side of the ball. And then they lose Benny Snell at running back, arguably the greatest running back in the history of Kentucky football. He's gone. They'll have to replace him. And again, there'll be a lot of question marks on defense. I still think this will be a respectable team. I don't think it's a team that's going to go out and get blown out by the better teams. But I don't see this team getting back to where they were last year. And I think they slip back to the middle or lower part of the SEC East. But the good news is that their schedule is pretty favorable when you look at it. They open up with Toledo, then Eastern Michigan. Florida is at home. Then you got back-to-back road games, Mississippi State and South Carolina, followed by Arkansas, road game against Georgia, Missouri, then Tennessee, on the road at Vanderbilt, UT Martin, and Louisville to finish out the season. Again, in the non-conference, you got Toledo, Eastern Michigan, UT Martin, and Louisville. Those are all winnable games. So right there, you've got 4 games that you probably should win. And then in the conference schedule and the crossover games, they face Mississippi State, who is very similar to Kentucky in my opinion. They both lose a lot of really good players on defense. So I think that's going to be a pretty even matchup. It will be tough because it's on the road, but it's a winnable game. And then you have Arkansas, who was the worst team in the SEC last season. Yes, I do think they'll be better this year, but that's a winnable game for Kentucky, especially at home. So you've got 6 fairly easy games. They have Missouri and Tennessee at home. They beat Florida last year. Can they do it again? I think it's going to be tough, but they do get them at home. And really their only road games left are South Carolina, Georgia, and Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, I think, is a winnable game as well. So this schedule really sets up nicely for Kentucky. We give them one basically guaranteed win, and that's over UT Martin. I don't expect them to have any problems in that game. Then you move ahead to that next tier of games that they should win, but they might get challenged, and that's Toledo and Eastern Michigan. Both of those teams are, they're 2 of the better group of 5 teams. Very solid group of 5 teams there, and they play them early in the season. So those aren't guaranteed wins, but I think Kentucky should win those games, and they should be favored, by at least a couple of touchdowns in those 2 games. So that will be interesting to see how they do, especially early in the season. But I have a lot of confidence in this team that they can win those 2 games and then move on to that one against Florida. Now, we look at the rest of the schedule, and we look for the best and worst case scenarios. Worst case scenario, you lose to Florida, South Carolina on the road, Georgia on the road, maybe Mississippi State on the road, Vanderbilt on the road, and then maybe even to Louisville or Missouri. So it's hard for me to imagine this team losing more than 6 games. This team gets to a bowl game, in my opinion. I think that's the worst case scenario for them is 6-6. That's about as bad as it gets if you're Kentucky. Now on the flip side, looking at the best case scenario, I don't know that they can beat Georgia. I know they beat Florida last year, but it's going to be tough this year. And back-to-back Mississippi State and South Carolina road games, I don't know that they can win both of those games. So I think best case scenario is about where they were last year, 9-3. Again, the schedule is really not that bad. If I had to pick, if you asked me which is more likely, 9-3 or 6-6, I'd probably say 9-3. And I think 8-4 is more likely than 9-3. But just looking at those 2 numbers, 9 wins is doable. Again, you lose to Florida, lose to Georgia, split the games with Mississippi State and South Carolina. Then they just have to beat Arkansas, Missouri, and Tennessee at home, Louisville at home, and go on the road and beat Vanderbilt. That's not that big of a challenge. Now, I think Tennessee's going to be better this year. I think Missouri's going to be tough. So they're probably going to lose some games and win some games in there. And that's why I don't really see them getting to 9 wins. I think 7 or 8 is more likely, right in the middle of my projected numbers. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see if their defense can play the level it played last year. If they can replace those guys, I think offensively they'll be about the same. So that's what it really comes down to. And if they take care of business at home and get a few big road wins, perhaps they can even get more than 9 wins. Maybe they even get to 10 wins. Who knows? But I think most likely with this schedule, They finished with between 6 and 9 wins, and again, that is in the regular season. That would not include a bowl game or anything like that. We're just looking at the 12 regular season games. So I think it's between 6 and 9 wins, more specifically between 7 and 8 if I wanted to narrow it down a little bit. But I think Kentucky will make it back to a bowl game, and I think this schedule sets up very nicely for them. One of the better schedules, I think maybe the easiest schedule in the SEC. Thank you for watching this video. If you're an SEC football fan, please subscribe to the channel. Leave us your thoughts down in the comments below. And for the latest in SEC football, keep it right here.